not in your vocabulary? Are you willing to outwork everyone in your next contest but need the right guidance? Drop those bad contest prep strategies and let New York Muscle Radio guide you on your journey to the stage. Whether it's your first show or you're going for that pro card, get a leg up on the competition with individual customized contest prep strategies. Visit NewYorkMuscleRadio.com and click on that coaching tab to get started.
New York's very own muscle building coaches, Anthony Bevilacqua and Pete Kacharian, proudly present to you New York Muscle Radio.
What's up, guys? New York Muscle Radio, episode number 115. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, alongside my co-host, Big Pete Kacharian. And if you're a new listener to New York Muscle Radio, welcome to the best muscle building podcast on iTunes. You've clicked on the right one. Today's topic, 7 things wrong with your deadlift. It's going to be an awesome episode. Seems to be the new trend. Everyone's deadlifting, so we're going to point out all the things people are doing wrong with their deadlift. But what's up there, big guy? How's it hanging?
It's going good, man. It's
supposed to say long and to the left.
Long and to the left. It's Labor Day weekend, actually, and it's my birthday tomorrow. So
holy shit, that's right, man.
Big weekend.
Oh my God, I feel like a terrible friend that I forgot.
Oh, it's all right. I almost forgot myself.
Oh man, I'm sorry. And you're a piece of crap too, because you don't even make plans for your own birthday.
Yeah, I know.
Unless you made him and didn't even invite me. You really are.
That might be what's going on, but no, this year, honestly, I really didn't care too much to do anything for my birthday, so I figured whatever I do over the weekend, just cool with me.
Wait, your birthday's on the 3rd? September 3rd?
Yes, the 3rd, yeah.
Oh, man, I can't believe I forgot. Terrible. I thought it was the 10th for some reason.
Nope, the 3rd.
Wow. Yeah, I remember last year we had our big barbecue, and everybody at the gym we worked at was jealous that we hung out together.
Yeah, well, everybody had their own... Well, we had our own barbecue because we're the special gym crew.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, damn, man. How old are you going to be?
27.
Damn, old man.
27. I'm still holding on to 20s. Once I hit 25, I said I want to stay 25. 27 I'm okay with, but once I start getting closer to 30, then I'm going to start panicking.
Yeah, well, that seems to be happening to me because I'm going to be 30 in May. And I don't know, man.
That's all right. I mean... I think you're still good till 35. Then you got to get on the hormone replacement therapy because your testosterone is going to go in a shitter.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the new trend.
Yeah. Well, the new trend is now over 21. You got to be on HRT.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate how people use that as an excuse. Oh, I'm only on an HRT dose. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's just HRT.
Yeah, I know. You're on an HRT dose. That's what everyone's saying. That it's like code now. People went from not admitting that they're on juice. That was the best. You know, when Instagram first started, everyone was natty. Now everyone's on hormone replacement therapy.
I know. Hormone replacement therapy is okay, but if you take a little bit more, then you're a steroid user. People are going to hate us. They think we hate on juicers.
Nah, I mean, I don't. Listen, I don't. I'm just people who lie.
Exactly.
Hate on people try to sound better than everybody else. Like, listen, if you're on hormone replacement therapy for a medical reason, that's fine. I get it. But if you're not and you're just saying that, you know, that's like you're still deceiving people.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason I rip on people for that is just because if you're not natural, then you're natural. Big deal. There's nothing wrong with that, but just don't say, oh, I'm natural. Like why do you have to hide it?
So 2 things I want to bring up. 1, did you see the picture of Kevin Levrone?
I did actually. Some people are speculating that that's an old photo, but that's definitely a recent photo.
No, it's him because I saw actually someone. I wish I would have saved the picture. I'm so annoyed that I didn't. But someone put it next to one of his Olympia pictures, and he doesn't. He actually, I mean, he looks obviously a lot smaller, but it's crazy when you have great genetics, man. How much it sticks,
Yeah. Well, the thing with him is this is good that he takes so much time off, but a lot of people don't want to do that. He always did that. So I think him...
Well, I mean, I wouldn't even say he took time off, man. When was the last time he did a show?
Well, that's what I...
time off.
That's what I mean. But even when he used to compete, he didn't train year-round like most guys do. He would, after his contest, he would just be a normal person, and then he would go back into training. And I think for longevity purposes, that plays a really big role. For him to be able to come that long out of retirement and look the way he does right now... You have to think that him not training like a bodybuilder year after year helped that, because if Ronnie Coleman were to try to come back right now, he's not going to look like the old Ronnie Coleman.
Well, he's the Robo Man now because
Yeah.
everything is bionic on him. But when was the last time Kevin Levrone competed?
I don't even know what year, to be honest with you. It's been a long time, though.
Yeah, I feel like we should look that up because I'm just curious how long it's been. I mean, I still give the guy a lot of credit. He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna do as well as everyone thinks he's gonna do. But just for the simple fact that he's actually doing it and actually going through it, you got to tip your hat to the guy. You know.
Well, yeah, that 100%. I mean, that's going to make the Olympia exciting.
Is he jumping right into the main Olympia? Right? He's not doing like the Masters. Yeah,
yes. I mean, but you know what? The fact is, Phil Heath doesn't really have much competition. You know, if nobody shows up in shape, it's Phil Heath. It's going to be a clean sweep. You know, you want somebody at least to come and give him a little run for his money.
You think Kevin Levrone is going to give him a run for his money?
I think it should be interesting to see. It could be hit or miss. I don't think so, to be honest with you. But, you know, if he is able to match anywhere near his all-time best, you know, Phil Heath would have a lot of trouble. But
do you think that's kind of sad on
yes,
bodybuilding?
I think 100%.
If this guy could come back and just clean sweep everyone, even if he comes in like top 5, that's got to be, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly, it reminds me of, if anybody has seen, you know the, I believe it was called Total Rebuild for the 1980 Olympia that Arnold was in, that movie?
Yeah.
Do you remember the interview they did with Bill Pearl? And he said, you know, because Arnold had retired after, 75, and then he came back to 80 to do the Olympia, or whatever year he retired. And Bill Pearl said, you know, they asked Bill Pearl, do you think that Arnold could come back and win the Olympia? And he says, well, you know, that would mean basically the sport of bodybuilding has stood still for the last 5 years. Nothing changed. You know, so he's like, you know, the sport has evolved. There's no way he could come in and just do that, even though he won. That's why it was a very controversial Olympia. But that just goes to show you that, honestly, from like the 90s, like if you look at 90s bodybuilders to now, 2016, 90s bodybuilders can, if they came back right now in the condition they were in the 90s, they would destroy the Olympias today.
I don't know. Anyone who's listening to this probably doesn't give a fuck about the Olympia and this and that.
No,
trying to reach,
probably not.
Not that we're trying to kick our bodybuilding fans out, you know, but we're trying to reach, you know, natties, I guess. So
yeah.
What's our target market here, buddy?
Natties who just like to go to the gym and eat. I don't think they give a shit about being lean. I think they just want to eat food and lift heavy weights. That's it.
Yeah, so no one really gives a shit about that.
And then we have the females too. So, but the females definitely don't care about, you know, Ronnie Coleman, Kevin Levrone, and Phil Heath.
Well, the other thing that I want to bring up to you, and I can't wait to bring this up to you just to see your face right now, but did you see that image of Cliff Wilson doing the dumbbell lateral raises?
Oh, yes, I did actually.
What are your thoughts?
Listen, this is my... I'll give you my politically correct answer, even though I'm generally...
First you should describe the post for anyone who doesn't know it. So basically, I think he has like 10 pounds or 12 pounds in his hands. I really don't know what he was doing weight-wise.
Very, very
and
light.
He's doing 3 sets of 40 reps for laterals. And you want to take over?
Yeah, well, I'll give you my... This is my opinion, and I would actually, if anybody disagrees with me, I'd really like to hear their argument against it. But Cliff Wilson, he's a very well respected contest prep coach for natural bodybuilders, and you know he has a lot of say, I guess, in the natural bodybuilding community. He's worked with Doug Miller, so a lot of people respect him, and he just won his pro card. So congratulations to him on that, which is cool. He won his pro card in maybe it was the IFPA, and I'm not sure which natural organization it was, but. He's known for getting people really lean, but he's, as himself as a competitor, he's very, very small muscle-wise. And he talks a lot about how he uses certain strategies.
Do you know where he competes? Like what weight class?
I have no idea. I'm not even sure. But he talks a lot about training methods. You know, that's what we talk about a lot on here. And I like to think that out of the natural bodybuilding community, me and you really have training down. I'm not to say that other people don't, but there's so many methods that we talk about that other natural bodybuilders don't use. And his method, I don't know. He says he doesn't put on muscle easily, but he trains with like 12-pound dumbbells. You know, I'm not going to hate on him. I'm not going to say that he's weak or whatever. But if you're small and you're trying to bring up your muscles, yeah. You know what I mean? Like my form is not perfect on my lateral raises by any means, but I use 55-pound dumbbells and I don't have small shoulders. You know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you got to pick up the aerobic dumbbells and use those for 40 reps.
You know, yeah. You know what I'm saying? I think that sometimes, you know what it is for natural bodybuilders? They get so into science on everything because as far as fat loss and nutrition, what really matters is the science behind it, calories in versus calories out, rather than the bro science stuff where this food gets you lean, this food gets you big, whatever it is. And they apply that too much to training, I think. And the fact of the matter is, training is much more simplified in that muscles were meant to move weight. You know what I mean? Like, if you take a 50-pound dumbbell and you move from point A to point B, even if your form is not perfect, your muscles are going to have to contract, provided you're not just swinging it up. But if you're moving it with some muscles and it's a heavy weight, some of your muscles have to grow, whether it's a target muscle or not. But if you overall are lacking you're overall lacking muscle to your frame, and you're trying to add a massive amount of muscle to your frame using something light like 20-pound dumbbells, 12-pound dumbbells, whatever it is, you're really taking away from the big picture, which is, again, like I said, muscles were meant to move weight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, 40 reps. I think there has to definitely be a fine line. I mean, I get like his what he says about like proper form and blah blah blah, but there definitely has to be a fine line between the two. Like you said, I do the same amount of weight as you on lateral raises, and it's all about, I feel like it's all about getting a contraction. Whenever you're moving weight, you have to get a good enough contraction in order to build the actual muscle. So it doesn't matter if you're lifting 12 or you're lifting 50, but if you're lifting 12, you definitely could do a lot more, man. I mean,
I thought you were going to disagree with me for a second.
No,
I was going to be like,
no.
well, I'm like, this is coming from the guy who squats 550 pounds, So why don't you just squat 135 and contract it hard?
Yeah. No. I think that, your form has to be loose, though. You got to understand, too, something like the biceps. I was explaining this to someone the other day. Your biceps are a small muscle group. There's no way you're actually going to grow biceps if you're using strict form. There's no way in hell. There's no possibility, because your muscles those bicep muscles are so tiny in relevance to other muscles in your body. If you're curling 135, you're going to have to use some momentum to get that weight up. There's no way in hell you're going to be able to do that strictly. And if you're overloading the muscle, you're going to have to use a little bit of momentum. But as long as you're contracting hard on top and controlling that negative, like how we explain it in the arm program, which is coming, by the way, your arms are going to grow. If you said, this is not working, I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to do the bar 45 pounds and do 40 reps. Yeah, I mean, it's going to burn, but if I lit you on fire, you're going to burn too. But are you going to build any muscle? No.
It's it's very true, and a lot of people. I mean, you've even made jokes about some of the exercise form I use on arm training, but arms happen to be one of my best body parts. And I mean, genetically, yes, maybe I'm a little bit gifted in that department, but the fact is, I've trained my arms every way possible. I've tried that same method that he's talking about, using very lightweight, contracting, and I never got any results out of it. When I started just progressively going heavier with the weights, even if the form got a little bit sloppy, I grew, but you always want to refine your form. If you start training with the 50-pound dumbbells and the form is sloppy, that doesn't mean, okay, keep trying to progress to the 60-pound dumbbells with the sloppy form. Okay, you started with 50, they're a little sloppy, try to perfect that, then go up to 60s, and if the 60s are a little sloppy, then try and perfect 60s. That's really the way to go about it. Don't stick with just 20 and then never go beyond that because your form gets a little bit of sloppy. Don't be afraid of a little bit of sloppy weight if it means you're increasing the weight, and eventually you're going to get the form down with that weight.
Yeah. All right. Well, on the next note, all right, guys, coaching. We made the announcement that we're going to close our coaching program very, very soon. We only have 3 spots left. If you're a current client, ignore this part. You don't have to worry about it. You're in for life. That's fine. 3 new clients is what we're taking on. So winner takes all here. So 3 spots left. Now's your chance. If you're thinking about changing your body, going through our physique transformation program, 3 spots left. NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. Do it now. Do it now. Do it right now. Get to the homepage.
We gotta get somebody on here to do a
voice?
Nice Arnold impersonation for us, because I would love.
We should pretend we have him on that day too.
Yeah, exactly. We'll pretend we have Arnold on the air.
Arnold, what do you think of New York Muscle Radio? I think it's fantastic.
That's his answer for everything. You ever notice that? It's fantastic, isn't it?
All right, guys. Also, t-shirts and tank tops. Ladies' tank tops, men's tank tops, and the t-shirts are live and ready. So, again, head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. Pick up your apparel.
Yeah,
All right, let's move on to. Go ahead.
I have to get myself one of those tank tops too. I just saw. I know. I just saw it the other day, and I haven't had a chance to see him in person. I'm gonna come by maybe this weekend at some point. And
You know what we should do? We should do a photo shoot of him, like same way the bodybuilding nerds did a photo shoot on theirs. They did like a wedding pose.
I saw that. That was actually pretty funny.
I have one to top that. So we'll do one for the website, and then we'll do one joking around to them. We'll take a shot at those guys. I have one perfect one.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
We're gonna put Pete in my wife's wedding dress.
she still has it.
Of course she does, man. Come on, man. You do know anything about women?
Some women sell those dresses. They wear them and then they'll sell them.
Nah,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think so. Women plan their wedding from when they're babies.
I
Don't
know.
you understand that?
I know.
All right, let's move on to the shout-outs portion. So, if you guys want a shout-out, head on over to facebook.com/New York Muscle Radio. Like the page. You can hit us up on Instagram also. We'll shout you out. I'm at AB Fitness. Pete's at Jacked Fitness, JKKED Fitness. And let's go. Mo Morales, Terry Roman, Shannon Ramiza, Nick Hine, Josh Withers, Luke Pornell, and Kimberly Watson Hick. So those are the shout-outs I have today. I don't know if you have any on Instagram you want to shout out really quick.
I don't have any in front of me, actually, so sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, so Pete leaves it up to me to butcher everyone's names. But again, if you want your name butchered, you can head on over to facebook.com/New York Muscle Radio. All right, let's move on to the listener question of the day. Again, if you guys have like a case study or you want us to analyze your current program, here's where you got to ask this question. So if you have a question or whatever, head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/listener question.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody jumped on that. We mentioned that on the last one.
Well, we got some. I shouldn't say that. We got some emails, but this was this question that we're talking about today. You mentioned in the last podcast, so that's why I didn't even check the other questions.
Okay, yeah.
So there probably was. I don't know.
Yeah. So if anybody also, if you maybe you did it already, but if you haven't, if you have trouble, you're at a sticking point somewhere in your diet or your training or whatever it is, you're gaining muscle, losing fat, send us an email. Tell us where your sticking point is, and we'll help you get past that. We'll suggest you what to change with it.
Yeah, if you're Kevin Lavroni, you can ask us too. We'll answer your question. No problem. We'll take care of you. All right, so today's question is from Jacob Saluner. He says, can you guys talk more about overtraining for beginners? I don't know how normal all of the pains and exhaustion that I'm dealing with are. Is there a way to determine whether or not that's just my body's way of adapting or if I'm actually injuring myself?
Well, I want to add something to that too, because I remember the email, and he said at the bottom of it that since he started listening to us, I think he said he gained like 20 pounds of muscle, then he put in parentheses newbie gains. So right there, that tells me if you're making that kind of progress, you're not overtraining, and you're probably nowhere near overtraining, and you don't have to worry about it. So that's number one. We could go into detail a lot more, but just know that to start, that if you're making that type of progress, you don't even have to worry about overtraining. You're nowhere near overtraining.
Yeah. I mean, if that's, I didn't even know that. So yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, but
you remembered something.
Yes. So let's just say, as far as he said, for overtraining for beginners, generally, let's say he didn't make that type of progress with those newbie gains. If he's a beginner and he's training, regardless, it's going to be very hard for him to approach overtraining. The more advanced you get and the stronger you are, that's when overtraining becomes more of an issue. When you're first starting out training, you're not training that heavy, you're not that strong, so you can't really provide too much fatigue to your body overall. Anthony's someone who squats over 500 pounds. When he regularly squats 3, 4, however many times a week with 400 or 500 pounds, his body's going to take a beating just from those squats. Now combine the fatigue of everything else he's doing, the benching, the deadlifting, all the accessory works. His body is going to take a much bigger beating than somebody who comes in the gym who can only squat 135 pounds. They can't train with that heavy of a load, so they're not going to be providing that much overall volume and fatigue to their body. So in the beginning, it's very hard to overtrain. You can definitely feel sore and beat up, but as long as your performance in the gym is good, don't worry about overtraining. Overtraining is going to come after. It's going to come after you're in that overreaching phase, which is when your performance starts to dip down, which is not bad.
Which is nearly impossible to get to, while training with weights. Overtraining really is a term brought on by marathon runners, because that's easy where you overtrain. You have systematic failures of your body by running all those miles. It's physically impossible to actually overtrain with weights. You're almost always going to overreach way before, and you'll get mentally burned out way before your body's in that state of overtraining. So I wouldn't even worry about that. It's normal to feel exhaustion and pains. That's totally normal, especially since you gained 20 pounds of new muscle. That's awesome, man, by the way. So congrats on that. And I'm glad we were able to help you do that for free, no less. So you better make sure you pick up a shirt, man. That's your way of saying thank you to us. But yeah, I would say, honestly, don't even worry about it. Maybe it's time for a little bit of a deload. As the years go on and as you learn about this more and more, you'll learn when you need to deload, when it's time to deload. It's normal to feel like this. I would say maybe go another week or so. If you feel that same way, then take a deload week.
Yeah, wait until you feel beat up enough where your performance starts to drop off. Then you might need to rest up a little bit. But like I said, if you're going in the gym and your performance is good, even if you feel really beat up, sometimes you might feel beat up, walk in the gym and set a personal record. So you have to not worry too much about how you feel. I've heard it from somebody, I can't remember who, but basically how you feel is a lie. When you're in the gym, don't go by how you feel, go by how you perform. So when your performance,
I always tell you that too.
Yeah, when your performance starts to dip, that's when you want to pay attention to it. But if you feel beat up, just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, and just keep doing what you're doing. Keep your training as simple as possible, especially if you're a beginner. Don't get fancy with all your different ways of training, all the different things that we might talk about or you may read on Instagram or whatever. Don't get fancy with that. Just stick to the basics and just keep doing what you're doing. You gained 20 pounds of muscle, so just keep going with it. Focus on your nutrition, and you'll be okay. Maybe take a deload if needed. All right, guys, again, if you have a question, head on over to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com/listener question, or, again, like we said, a case study. Shout us out. Let us know. All right, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back with today's topic.
What's up, New York Muscle Radio listeners? It's your co-host, Big P. Kacharian, and I'm glad you're all listening. Put down the tilapia and asparagus. Learn how to get bigger, stronger, and leaner eating what you want. Pick up a copy of Cracking the Flexible Dieting Code exclusively at NewYorkMuscleRadio.com. But for now, let's get to the show.
Hey guys, it's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and I just wanted to announce that my brand new personal training facility is now open. I'm currently taking on new clients in the Long Island, New York area. If you're interested in working with the best personal trainer in the business, head on over to abfitnesstrainer.com and sign up for your free consultation. Then you can understand why bodybuilding.com has named me Personal Trainer of the Month. All right, guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio, episode number 115. The 7 things that are wrong with your deadlifting. So, like we said earlier, deadlifting, squatting, powerlifting seem to make a huge jump in the fitness industry nowadays. It seems like everybody's squatting and deadlifting and doing some type of strength training program, which is wonderful. And I'm so glad that this finally caught on to the whole community, because I honestly have always felt like powerlifters have a better sense of training than bodybuilders ever will. And I feel like bodybuilding training sometimes can be subpar to what you need to get results. So I'm happy to see that. The problem is everybody's deadlifting wrong. I see so many things wrong with people's deadlifts. And I can say this because I've made all these mistakes. So this is the only reason why I could say that. But I've noticed that deadlifting is one of the most technical, complicated movements. It's more than just picking a barbell up off the ground. I mean, yes, granted, you can do that incorrectly and still set a PR, but there's a lot of finesse that goes into a great deadlift.
Yeah, unfortunately, if I walk into a gym, I rarely ever see a deadlift.
I wasn't even talking about that.
Correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, I might see somebody deadlifting, at least one person deadlifting every time I go in the gym, and I'd say 9 out of 10 times, the person's not even deadlifting just a little bit off. The deadlift form is terrible.
Yeah, that's common, people, but yeah. Yeah, deadlifting is one of those things, like I said.
Some of them might actually be fairly strong, pulling 3-4 plates or whatever it is. For an average gym member, pulling that amount of weight, that's a significant amount of weight. And if you're doing it wrong with that type of weight, you're not only risking injury, but you're not getting the most out of the lift. A lot of people are doing it because they want to build their back, yet they're using every muscle but their back. Sometimes people are using it to get stronger, and they're only using their back. So it depends what your goal is, and how we're going to get into how you perform it based on your goal. But I don't think people have a sense of why they're doing the deadlift. They just do it because they think you're supposed to.
I was laughing because I especially in the gym, I've seen people who could bench 315 and then can't even do a 315 deadlift correctly.
Oh, that's
bad.
That's more common than seeing the 315 bench.
Yeah.
Seeing a guy with a 315 bench and no deadlift.
And then the people pick it up and they look like a question mark.
Oh my God, Snapback City.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so let's get right into this. So the first problem that I see is people not deadlifting for their goal. So again, you have to figure out, why am I doing deadlifts? You know, if you're an average person listening to this and you want to build up your whole posterior chain, which is every muscle that faces away from you, so every muscle from your traps all the way down to your calves, deadlifting is going to be one of those exercises that will bring all those body parts up at once. And usually if you're an average person who sits all day, those muscles are extremely weak on you. So doing a deadlift for someone like that is done very differently for someone who's doing deadlifts for powerlifting. So you have to assess what your goal is. Do you want to gain mass in your back? Do you want a better posture? You know, these are all things that take part in deadlifting.
Yeah, and I think that probably what I see most in the gym as far as people doing deadlifts are doing them to build their back. They might be on a bodybuilding type split on a back day. They might start with deadlifts. And yes, the deadlift is a great exercise for the back, but most people are going about it very wrong. You know, the deadlift is definitely a power exercise, but most people might go into the gym and I'll see them try and work up to a heavy set of 1 or 2 reps. And as far as building muscle, you know, we always talk about how volume plays such a big role in building muscle. If you're going to go in the gym and just pull 1 or 2 reps with a heavy max every single time you do deadlifts, it's going to do little to nothing to help build your back up. So
Yeah.
if you're a power lifter and you're training heavy with singles, doubles, triples, stuff like that, there's going to be a ton of carryover into bringing up your max. But if you're a bodybuilder, that's definitely not the way to go about it. So you have to know first what your goal is. If you're a bodybuilder, you're going to train your deadlift as far as sets, reps, volume, totally different than a power lifter. And you can even train the actual lift differently if your goal is to specifically just bring up your back versus just trying to get stronger on the deadlift.
Yeah, which is kind of similar to what we did with you originally when you first started deadlifting. We wanted to bring up, you asked me how to bring up your weak legging body parts, and I recommended going conventional in the deadlifts. And for you, you were pulling sumo style deadlifts for a long time, and switching over to conventional seemed to improve a lot for you, not just your back and your hamstrings, the areas you wanted to bring up, but it also improved your overall pain that you were feeling in your lower back. Your lower back is not a weak point anymore where it used to be. You know, you told me you used to have pain even high bar squatting because your lower back was a weak point in that. And now that you've been deadlifting for strength in that area, that pain went away.
Yeah, I mean, the conventional deadlift really changed my training and my physique altogether. And it was something that I had not done. You know, I've been training for I don't know how many years now, 12, 13 years, whatever it is. And conventional deadlifts was just never something that was a regular thing in my routine. Like you said, I pulled more sumo when I would deadlift. But, you know, let's back up a little bit because it's good you mentioned this. I squatted high bar for years. And I built great quads doing that. I'm very quad dominant on my lower body. Hamstrings, lower back, glutes were never big muscle groups or strong muscle groups on me. Quads were always very dominant. I had a great set of quads, even when I was only squatting about 315 high bar all the time, which is a great quad builder. Eventually, it got to the point where my lower back, my glutes, my hamstrings, they were just such an imbalance from my quads that I would have pain just high bar squatting. You know, my flexibility, my mobility was off, and high bar squatting became almost impossible with heavy weights because I would have so much lower back pain. So I eventually switched to low bar squats for a long period of time, for years, and that was more comfortable. Since then, when I decided to actually address those weak points, we started conventional deadlifting a lot. Like you said, do lots of conventional deadlifts. We added a ton of weight to my max on conventional deads. My traps, my rhomboids, and more specifically my lumbar got very, very thick. My glutes grew too. Hamstrings came up a little bit too, just from switching to conventional deadlift and adding a lot of weight, to the point where just recently I started high bar squatting again. And I haven't high bar squatted since like 2011. And I'm able to move just as much weight as I high bar squat as I low bar squat with no pain at all. My lower back is so much stronger. So it had such a significant carryover to my strength in general and all those weak muscle groups. So specifically for my goals, the conventional deadlift was exactly what I needed to do. But depending on your goals, it might not be.
Yeah, I would even say, deadlifting is definitely one of those exercises that are necessary. They're part of the big three, quote unquote, but I think that in order to develop a perfectly balanced physique, I'm talking bodybuilding wise right now, you need to deadlift because deadlifts just bring up so many little muscles in your back and so much detail in your back that you need to be doing them. for bodybuilding purposes. Definitely has to. For the average person, like I said, if you're sitting at a desk all day long and you're, whatever, you drive all day, whatever the case is, these deadlift is going to strengthen up all those muscles on your body that are weak. So deadlifting is for everybody. It's just about fitting it in. And I would say if you're a powerlifter, obviously you're going to be focusing more on the overall technique of the movement to make the movement easier so you can move more weight. If you're bodybuilding, you might want to focus on maybe keeping a little more time under tension on the muscle, and, maybe more higher reps just to build up that nice thickness in there. And again, if you're an average person, you could kind of similar to the bodybuilder approach for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a powerlifter, you want to take whichever method will allow you to move the most amount of weight. So depending on your structure, how you built, a sumo deadlift might be better for you. A conventional deadlift might be better for you.
You love jumping ahead, huh?
I don't even know where we are on the list. You have the list in front of you, but if you're a female, let's say, and your goal is physique oriented specifically, then maybe a sumo deadlift is going to be better for you. I happen to find that for most females, if their goal is to bring up their glutes, they're not really trying to bring up thick lower back muscles. Sumo deadlift is going to have much more. It's going to be much better for that. Bodybuilders, depending on your build, if you're not trying to build, your glutes, your hamstrings, you might be able to get away with just doing rack deadlifts because you're focusing primarily on your back. But again, it's going to depend on everything. I was doing mine more for physique purposes, and the conventional deadlift is exactly what I needed. So you're going to have to assess what your goal is and what your structure is like and what your weak points are.
Yeah. So let's shift gears now. The other problem I see with everyone deadlifting is overall form. Now, this is going to be really, really tricky because there's a lot that goes into overall form. I don't think many people understand the proper form of a deadlift because I think everybody's built so differently that the deadlift is going to look so different based on any person. Any person who's deadlifting is going to look totally different. My deadlift looks different from Pete's deadlift, who will look different from Cliff Wilson's deadlift, if he even deadlifts.
Yeah, you see, that's the problem that most people have with deadlifts is everybody, especially people who claim to be personal trainers or whatever, they do everything textbook form. Okay, there is no textbook form for a deadlift. Textbook form is different for everybody on a deadlift. If you're doing a tricep press down, you can set up a diagram of a guy standing up straight, elbow joints right at the side locked in, and then pressing the weight straight down. It's going to be the same for everybody. What textbook form is. For somebody with very, very long arms, their textbook form is going to be very different than somebody with short arms. And generally the textbook form that you might actually see in a textbook is based off of somebody with very good limb lengths for a deadlift, which is generally a shorter torso, very long arms. So that perfect form is not even possible on somebody with my build and somebody with Anthony's build because both of us are not able to get in that textbook form position based on our limb length. So we have to do it differently.
Correct. Well, one thing, we said this on another podcast, but I'll do it again in this one. If you guys let your arms hang at your side, you can let one arm hang at your side, put one finger on your belly button and draw a line from your belly button over to the arm that's hanging. If your elbows are below that line, you have great limb lengths for deadlifting. If not, you're going to be in the same boat as me and my co-host here because, Pete does this and he's touching his fingers pretty much.
Yeah, my measurements are terrible for the deadlift. Definitely, if you are one of those people and your goal is just to move the maximum amount of weight, most of the time the sumo position is going to be a little bit better than a conventional for you. But if your goal is to do conventional, like me and Anthony both do conventional, but we're not necessarily built for conventional, you're going to have to alter your form and it's going to look a little bit different.
Yeah. So overall form, again, the correct, proper way to do a deadlift, the bar should move in a straight line. So if you filmed yourself, and this is what I do all the time to make sure I'm doing everything right and to correct my form and just to always be one up on the game. Same way football players always play tape over of what they're doing, during practice and this and that. You have to kind of do the same thing with your deadlifts. So my daughter just came into the room. So anyway, so when you do a deadlift, hi, Gabriella. You want to say hi? Come here. No, say hi. Say hi. Come here. Do you hear?
Yeah, I hear.
She doesn't want to say hi. I don't want to say hi. So anyway, so the proper form for a deadlift, the bar from the side, the bar should move in a straight line up and down. So that bar should be in a straight line, and that straight line, your shoulder blade should be right over the barbell. As long as the bar moves in a straight line from the floor up, your form is correct. However, you get your body in position for that. But if that bar line is not there, you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And everybody will look at the position you get in at the starting position, and they might look at a diagram and say, okay, this person should be in this position. But the person pulling that weight might have a completely different body structure, and he cannot get into that same position and pull the bar in a straight line. For some people, you always hear it over and over again. Your hips are too high, lower your hips. For some people, that starting position might have to be with much lower hips. Mm-hmm. The other person might be able to pull with much higher hips, but you have to be built genetically to get in that position where your hips are high and still be able to pull in a straight line.
Yeah, again, when my conventional deadlift form, again, because of my limb length, is a little different, I actually prefer to wear squat shoes when I deadlift, which is contrary to what most people will tell you, because it helps me keep my hips a little bit higher to keep that more of a straight line on my deadlift. So again, you have to approach deadlifting. It's like I said, a very, very technical movement. It's not just pick the weight up off the floor however you can. It's all done. The straighter that line stays, the better. So again, video yourself from the side and you'll really see what I'm talking about there. If the bar line, as you come up, moves to an angle or moves away from you, you're going to have a horrible time. Your deadlift's never going to improve. So again, focus on that. That's the most important thing with overall form. This brings us into our next topic, and another common problem that most people have is they actually squat the deadlift. And I've done this several times. Clients do this. This is a common problem. Most people try to squat a deadlift, and it's nearly impossible to do that because, again, your shoulder blades have to be in line with the barbell as you lift it. If you're squatting the deadlift, you're going to be falling back more in a squat position. Your shoulders are not going to be in the proper position when you pull. So you're actually wasting a lot of energy. And oddly enough, because the deadlift is a concentric movement only, meaning that you're just picking it up, there's no eccentric portion of it, your body's actually, so if you're trying to squat a deadlift, your body, right before it breaks the ground, it's going to pull your body in the correct position you have to be anyway. So you're actually wasting precious energy trying to squat the bar because your body's just going to put you in that right position anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. No matter how you set up your deadlift, whether it's optimal or whether it's terrible, some way along the lift, maybe midpoint, maybe a few inches off the ground, maybe at the top, your body is eventually going to get in the correct position to pull that weight. It's a matter of starting the closest to that position, which is going to be the optimal pull for you. Because if you pull totally in a complete squat position, you'll end up in that deadlift position. It's just going to take you a lot longer. And you're going to make it harder to get out of the bottom because you're in the incorrect position where you're not pulling optimally. So, where you start on the bottom should be the closest to the end. So if you're in a squat position, your body's eventually going to straighten out a lot more. Your hips are going to have to shoot up. And you like Anthony said, you're wasting a lot of energy. So the goal is you want to start as close to the finish as you can. If you're actually doing a squat, then that's completely different. So don't relate your deadlift to your squat. The form is not the same.
Same thing applies for sumo deadlifts also. We're not just talking conventional. People do that with sumo also. They kind of squat the weight down and try to pull it up. But again, same things with, like Pete said, what's going to happen is your hips are going to shoot up first and then the bar is going to come up. And I've done that with my deadlift, so I know I was making that same mistake. And yeah, so don't squat your deadlifts. That's the most important thing. The deadlift is not a squat, so there's no reason to try to mimic that because it's not the same muscles that are actually moving. The deadlift is a hip hinge movement, which basically means using more of your hips for this movement to happen. Everything's happening at the hips, pretty much. A squat is totally different from that.
Yeah, I think the mistake a lot of people make when they try and squat the deadlift is because they want to have a lot of power off the floor, so they try and engage their legs in there. While, if you do engage your legs, you might give yourself a better base depending on what your strengths and your weaknesses are. But the fact is, to get in the position to pull it optimally, you're not going to be squatting the weight. So if you get yourself in that position, it's almost like if your goal is to do a 3/4 squat, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar doing because most people don't do it correctly, you're not going to want to squat ass to grass because you basically have to get into that 3/4 position and then finish the movement. So that's why you see people who are able to 3/4 squat 3 or 4 times the amount of weight that they could actually do a full squat, because you're taking a lot more energy to do the full squat. So as far as a deadlift, I know it sounds a little bit weird, but it's almost like you want to do that 3/4 squat because you're just trying to move the hips, not your whole body.
Yeah, a lot of people give the cue of dropping your hips, and that's kind of the worst cue you can ever give someone because, again, it makes them squat the deadlift. In fact, I would say that a better thing to tell people is keep your hips up.
Yeah.
Push your hips up, because that's going to help you stay in that correct position and actually do a hip hinge movement. So before we go further here, let's move on to limb lengths, because we touched on it before, but I think this is extremely important. I mean, I think we kind of covered it a little bit, but I want to talk about, like I said, we showed you how to find out if you have the proper arm length for deadlifts. But again, if you have, for whatever reason, I'd like to use myself for an example. I was deadlifting conventional first, then I switched over to sumo. I got really good at sumo, but the problem was with me, my hips just didn't move in that position. So it was actually killing my hips. So what I did was went back to conventional and slowly started to build up there. But like we said, I'm built more for a sumo from my upper body, but for my lower body, I'm built for a conventional. So I have to rearrange my body when I'm doing it. But as long as I'm keeping my overall form intact, it doesn't matter how I kind of get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the correct form for you and the correct positioning for you is whatever way you can get in position where you pull that bar in a straight line till it meets your hips. You know, whether that's sumo, whether that's conventional, or whether that's hips high, hips low, hips medium, it's going to be different for everybody. But a general rule of thumb, you want to start that movement as close to the finishing position as you can.
Yeah, and then one thing that I had a problem with also was trying to stay correct based on what everyone was telling me, was I was getting a lot of rounding in my upper back, and that could be a huge problem. There's a lot of good deadlifters who actually do deadlift with rounded backs, but you're going to lose a lot of power when it comes to locking out the weight. And I'm just trying to relate this also to people who aren't planning on competing in powerlifting, but you know, you don't want to have a rounded back period. You're not going to hit the muscles correctly either. So it wasn't until I actually found out how to get my body in that same alignment that I was actually straight. So again, don't try to look at the overall form of just keeping the bar in a straight pattern with your shoulder blades over the bar. As once you find that position, however you fall in there, everything will just work out.
Yeah,
as simple as that sounds.
It's as simple as that. When you go down and you try and get in that position, I promise you it's going to be a lot more complicated than that. But that's all you have to focus on is that one thing, pretty much. You know, there's so many different things that could go wrong in the deadlift, but if you have that right, you're covering yourself. So just focus on that.
Yeah, and that applies to anybody. Anybody listening to this, female, male, bodybuilder, powerlifter, regular person, regular gym goer, that doesn't matter. Your form is 100% correct. If you're deadlifting 300 pounds, just for argument's sake, but you're deadlifting it wrong, it's almost like you're putting 600 pounds of pressure on your body by deadlifting incorrectly. So this is why form is so important. And like I said, the deadlift is the most technical exercise and something that needs to be worked on religiously.
Yeah.
And I always feel like you'll always find more ways to refine your movement, and you'll also find flaws in it. Your deadlift form is always going to kind of be changing, I feel like, because you're going to realize more and you're going to get better at getting into that certain position.
Yeah, most exercises, when people do them incorrectly, they're making it easier on themselves. You know, when you're half squatting, when you're quarter squatting, when you're not going down all the way on dumbbell presses or bench presses, or if you're doing barbell curls and you're swinging the weight up, you're not contracting the biceps, you're able to handle more weight and it's easier. With the deadlift, that's almost always the exact opposite.
Yeah.
You know, if you're trying to pull 400 pounds off the floor and your hips are all the way down and you're trying to engage all your quads, you're gonna make moving 400 pounds a lot harder than if you started in the correct position closest to the finishing position. So, you know, it's the opposite. So you want to focus on correct form even more because it's going to help you move more weight and safer and use the muscle groups that you're trying to use if you're a bodybuilder. And if you're a powerlifter, you're going to use the muscle groups that are going to help you lift the most weight.
Yeah. All right. So the other problem I see is people choosing the wrong type of deadlift. This is a common problem. Like we mentioned, you know, if you're built for sumo deadlifts and you're doing conventionals, just making that one switch might make a huge difference as far as even like, you know, pain. If you have a little pain being in a conventional deadlift, try sumo because that's a little different too. You could even try a trap bar deadlift. Trap bar deadlift is a little different of a movement. I would say a trap bar deadlift is similar to a leg press. That's kind of how I look at it because you definitely use a lot more quads with that because you're able to drop down a little bit lower. So I would consider that more of like a leg press movement, but also it can be a type of deadlift and can also hit those posterior muscles that need to be hit. So for the average person who doesn't want to get all technical with their deadlift form, a trap bar may be the perfect way to go about it. Again, every exercise has different ways it can be implemented, you know, based on your goal. So again, you have to always go back to the first thing we said was deadlifting for your goal, watching your overall form, and then going from there.
Right, and that's going to depend on everybody because especially how you're built, where your strengths and weaknesses are, and what your overall goal is. You know, you get all these absolutes in bodybuilding where the squat is the absolute best exercise for legs. But with the deadlift, I'll use myself as an example. If my goal was to get as strong as possible on the deadlift and pull the most amount of weight, structurally, I'll be better off pulling sumo. If my goal, which it is to focus on bringing up my weak muscle groups, the body parts that I do want to grow, conventional hands down is way better. So I do conventional. So for everybody's different limb lengths, positioning in their goals, there's going to be one that's going to be better than the other.
Yeah, one thing that I want to touch on too. For me, my sumo blew away where I was with my conventional. I only got up, I think, to like 530 or 540. No, maybe 550. I don't remember. Somewhere in that range. Conventional. I think I did 540 in contest. Whatever. Anyway, 540 in contest is what I deadlifted conventional. Sumo, I did 575. So I'm trying to, but I think now that I'm redefining my conventional, I think I'm putting myself in a better position. I know I'm going to blow past where I was. So again, it takes some time also, so don't be discouraged when it comes to that.
Yeah, the deadlift takes years to master. If not, I don't think anybody ever truly masters it. So as long as you're improving, you're heading in the right direction. Don't expect to master it right out of the gate. But the fact is, if you're doing these few things that we're mentioning here correctly, you're going to be way ahead of everybody else. So just focus on that first.
What do you think of rack deadlifts, man?
I think they have their place.
Actually, don't even say that. I jumped ahead. Wow, I jumped ahead.
I didn't even know we were going ahead with that one. But
yeah, I jumped
okay,
ahead.
so we won't go into that yet. But just sticking with the different types of exercises for your goals. If you're a powerlifter, then obviously you're going to want to select the one that's going to allow you to move the most weight. If you're a bodybuilder, you want to do the one that definitely works with your structure the best, but also the one that's going to focus more on the muscle groups you're trying to target. Like I said, if you're a female and your goal is primarily glutes, the conventional is probably the least effective at that. Sumo is going to be way better. If you want to do a trap bar deadlift, that's a great exercise if you're trying just to develop legs and glutes. You might not even need to use a straight bar. If you're a bodybuilder and you're trying to just focus on building your back, not focusing too much on glutes, hamstrings, the rack deadlifts will help with that. Conventional is going to be better than sumo. Sumo is definitely not going to involve the lumbar as much because the range of motion is definitely going to be a lot shorter. You're going to be more upright. So it depends on your goals.
Man, we give out so much good information on this podcast. It's insane. There's no podcast that does this.
No. Do you know why there's no podcast that does this? Because you get the guys on here talking about doing pull-ups to work their arms, the compound movements, doing their arms. Like, do you even lift? Do you know what I mean? If you actually lift, you would not be giving that advice.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I deadlift, I feel like a scientist almost because I'm always constantly videoing myself and just trying to figure out where I can be better, where I can improve. And I think that's what's going to take me to the next level. So I urge everyone to do that. And like I said, I could say all these things that are incorrect with everyone else's deadlift because I've done them before,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're speaking from experience too. I was definitely the worst gym squat deadlifter ever in the beginning, meaning I tried squatting my deadlifts all the time, and that was a big problem, which is why I stopped doing conventional for a long time because I figured I just wasn't built for it. So I started doing sumos, and I'm definitely built more for a sumo deadlift, but the fact is I could have made major improvements to my conventional. When I did that, I saw the results I was actually looking for. So the fact was, instead of me trying to go around the issue and do something else, if I had just faced the issue and try and improve it, I would have got the results way earlier.
There's one thing that I want to say also, especially when it comes to the sumo deadlift in general. If you're doing a sumo deadlift, you have to do conventional deadlifts. It's a must because sumos really skip out on using that lower back fully. If you incorporate a conventional deadlift in your sumo program, it will help you be a more balanced deadlifter in general. I have to say that. I have to put that out there. I think I'm probably the first person to ever say that, but I know from experience because, like I said, I've done conventional, I've done sumo, and I went back to conventional. There's nothing like a conventional deadlift in the strength that it actually builds in your body. Sumo is definitely more of a technical movement, but just getting that thick, raw strength from a conventional deadlift is a necessary thing. So if you're a primary sumo deadlifter, again, I'm not talking about just in general of content. If you're training for powerlifting, you have to do sumo, obviously. But if you're just a general person who wants to get a more developed physique and you deadlift sumo, switch over to conventional for a little bit. Just strengthen up that lower back because there's nothing that will do that. So again, if you're a sumo deadlifter, you have to do conventional. Have to. It's a must. I'm saying the word have. You have to.
What about like a Romanian deadlift or a stiff leg?
Nah,
Could
you have
that
to.
could that be a substitute? You don't think so?
Nah, nothing trains the lower back like a conventional deadlift does. I mean, those work that area, but nothing is like a conventional deadlift. If you're trying to improve your deadlifts in general, you have to do them. They have to.
I agree with that. I think that definitely if you're
I hate to say that word have, and a lot of people
I don't
in this
think
industry
anything
call out
yeah.
people, but that's one of the things that I think you have to. If you're a conventional deadlifter, you don't have to do sumo. There's no reason for it. There's not going to be any carryover.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And as far as if you pull primarily sumo, you definitely want to have at least some type of conventional in there. If not, at the very least, I would say stiff legs and Romanian deadlifts because there's definitely going to be carryover to your sumo. But I don't think anything builds raw strength off the floor like a conventional deadlift. That I have to agree with.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about programming now because that's another problem that most people have. You have to program your deadlifts based on your goal. Again, if your goal is powerlifting, you may want to work with the system that I told you about, just focusing on doing singles. Okay, this workout I'm doing 12 singles because that's going to help you improve pulling off the floor for 1 rep. If you're a bodybuilder, you may want to focus on keeping a little more time on the tension on the muscle, so maybe doing sets of 5. I don't think it's necessary to do more than 5 reps on a deadlift because anything more than that I consider cardio.
Yeah, I mean, for a deadlift specifically, I have to agree with that. I mean, you could argue maybe like sets of 6 or something, but if you're doing sets of 8, 10, and 12 on a deadlift,
yeah, there's no reason for that.
I promise you're getting less out of the movement too. Even if it's a lot harder and you're doing all those reps, if you're doing that many reps in one set, I guarantee you each rep you do is going to get progressively worse form-wise, and you're not going to be using your muscles the same way. So,
Correct.
Anything over a few reps, your form's just going to break down dramatically where it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah, regardless if you train with singles only, if you're just doing, whatever. So if your protocol requires 12 reps at this weight and you're just doing one single, resting, another single, or you're doing sets, 3 sets of 5, whatever it is, 4 sets of 5, whatever it would be, I urge you to reset every lift because that is going to ensure that you're pulling properly every time. And one of my biggest pet peeves is people doing deadlifts touch and go. I hate that. I absolutely don't think there's any carryover because if I ask you, what's the hardest lift of a deadlift? What's the hardest rep of the deadlift?
Yeah, it's the first one by
by
far, but not even close.
And and I know, once you get the bar moving, you could pretty much rep anything.
Oh, yeah. I've seen so many people where they basically almost miss the first rep.
Yeah.
And then when they do touch and go, they could probably get a set of 6 or 8 with the weight that they almost missed on the first rep. Now, if they put it all the way back down, reset, and tried to pull it a second time, they probably couldn't do it. But yet they did a set of 8.
Exactly. So I urge you to reset every rep. Take 4 seconds between each one. Keep your hands in the bar, stay in place, take 4 seconds, and that will make all the difference. It's a lot harder. But it will make all the difference in your training because that first rep is the hardest and it will improve your deadlift so much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how much harder. Let's say you had to do 5 sets of 5. So it's 25 total reps. If you were to do 5 sets of 5 touch and go versus trying to do 25 singles with the same weight, how much harder 25 singles will be and how much more you're actually going to get out of the lift.
Yeah. I think it's more the 5 by 5 is hard though. Like if you just do 5 sets of 5 on a deadlift, it's pretty hard. But I think whereas the 25 reps is going to be a little bit easier in that sense. But I think what you get out of it is tenfold doing singles.
Oh, absolutely. And
I mean, I was the first person to introduce that to you, completely resetting in between your deadlifts. And what did you think when you switched? That was new to you when I told you to do it.
Absolutely. And if you were to take any other exercise, like let's say we were going to take a squat. And you told me, okay, you do 5 sets of 5 with the squat or 25 with the same weight. I don't care how you do it. Which one are you going to pick? I would say I'm going to do 25 singles because they're going to be so much easier than doing 5 sets of 5, Sets, rep after rep on a squat is very hard, especially if, let's say you were doing 3 sets of 8, 24 reps, whatever it is. Yeah. Would you rather do 3 sets of 8 or do 24 singles? I'd rather do 24 singles. Now, on the deadlift, if you have that same mentality and you say, oh, you know what, just pull 25 singles instead of doing 5 sets of 5, I would say, oh, that's so much easier. No, 25 singles where every rep, you have to remember, every rep you're doing is the first rep. Mm-hmm. When you're doing 5 sets of 5 or whatever it is, even if you're doing 3 sets of 8, you're only doing 3 or 5 reps where the first rep, where a rep is the first rep. If you're doing 25 singles, you're doing 25 where it's the first rep. So you're doing 25 that
hardest
is
rep.
that much harder, brutally hard.
Well, one thing I want to touch on before we go any further, you mentioned doing that for squats, and you can't do that. So don't try doing that, because there's no carryover to that at all. The reason why it's important to do sets of 8, whatever, 5, whatever, there's multiple sets, is because whenever you squat or bench, you're using that eccentric portion of the movement that plays a part in the movement. So you want to train that as well. So you can't squatting and bench won't work doing singles. Only deadlifting, because deadlifting is just using the concentric portion of the movement. You're not taking advantage of that eccentric. When you bounce the weight off the floor, you are, and that has no carryover to the deadlift.
Yeah, that should never be done. There's no there's a time and place for a lot of different things that we mentioned, but there's no time and place for that.
None at all. You know, it's funny. My daughter's talking in the background, so I don't know if you hear that or not. But the other day we went into the gym, which I have a gym set up in my house for the trained clients in. It's actually really set up like a studio. So anyway, there was 135 pounds on the bar, 225, whatever it was. So she walks over to it and tries to pick it up. I'm like, no, that's heavy, Gabriella. She goes, no, it's not heavy.
That's how you know she's your daughter, right?
Yeah. That's not heavy. I was laughing so hard. She put her hands on it, and I just look over, and she's like trying to lift it. I'm like, Gabriella, no, it's heavy. No, it's not heavy.
You gotta watch, man. She sees you doing this all these years. You know, when she turns 14, she's gonna walk in the gym. She's gonna pull 315. You're gonna be like, what the fuck? Where did that come from?
I'd be so happy, man. I'd be so happy. I'd be the proudest. #proud dad.
Hey, man, she keeps seeing it. It might happen.
Yeah, and my wife, we put her in dance. She's 2.5, but we put her in dance. I'm not happy about that idea. I feel like dance, I've watched my sisters go through dance, and I just feel like dance has no carryover to anything in life. I don't know, we'll see how long this lasts, but I want to put her in like gymnastics. I feel like that at least you develop hand-eye coordination, you know, you learn to move your body, you learn to do cool things with your body, muscle control and things like that. With dance, I don't feel like there's any good movement out of that. I don't know.
Well,
maybe that's just the trainer and me talking.
I guess it depends what type of movements you're doing in dance, but I think overall it's definitely good as far as keeping the body in shape. You know what I mean? But as far compared to gymnastics, I don't know. Yeah,
I watched my sisters. They did dance for years, and it didn't carry over to anything in their life.
Gymnastics is definitely good, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I could talk my wife out of dancing into that.
It's funny because some people who do gymnastics are in better shape than bodybuilders.
Oh my god! Yeah, you ever see the ones
muscles,
the Olympics,
leaner?
Man? Crazy.
Those guys look like, you know, they'll blow away physique athletes. You know.
Oh god, that's another funny story. But anyway, physique athletes, they make me laugh nowadays.
Oh, it's getting worse, right?
Yeah, it really is. They don't even train legs.
No, well, forget about even training legs. I don't even think they train at all.
We'll leave that for another one. But let's talk about accessory work, the last and final topic. So this is where we got into this a little bit early. But so the problem with accessory work is people do too much, some people do too little, and some people do the wrong exercises. So again, this is going to vary person by person. And going back to our listener question of the day, which is keeping into the fact of overall volume. If you're doing a lot of deadlifting, you're focused on getting the deadlift better, you know, stronger, whatever, you're deadlifting 3 times a week, let's just say, you might not need a lot of accessory movements, you know, or if you're training to deadlift infrequently, you can get away with doing a little bit more in that sense. But overall volume has to be accounted for there.
Yeah, and then your accessory movement is going to have to be specific to what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to get your deadlift stronger, then whatever part of the weak point of your deadlift is what you're going to want to focus on. You know, you mentioned rack deadlifts. A lot of people might think, okay, if my lockout is bad on deadlifts, if that's the weak point, then maybe I'll do rack deadlifts. But the fact is, the rack deadlift has almost no carryover to a regular deadlift because it's not the same exact movement. You're starting it, depending where you're starting it from, you're going to be in a completely different position pulling it off the rack than pulling it off the floor. The carryover is going to be very little. You know, if you're doing it for bodybuilding purposes, you might not need to do it off the floor and you want to just do it off a rack. Okay, that's fine. But as far as accessory movements, if you're weak off the floor, maybe you need stronger quads off the floor. You might need stronger hamstrings locking out. That's when you might want to be more specific with your accessory movements.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the rack deadlift has more of a carryover for the top portion of the movement. I don't know. I'm like up and down about it. The rack deadlift for me is my hardest lift, though. It puts me at such a, I guess because I'm not built to conventional, it just puts me in such a hard place. So it's one of the hardest movements for me to do, period. Like I can do deadlifts off a block, the deficit deadlifts all day. That won't bother me. A rack deadlift, man, kills
Yeah.
me.
Well, you'll see so many people who will go in the gym and they'll rack deadlift like 5, 6 plates, but if they were to pull it off the floor, they'll have trouble with 315.
Yeah.
And that's because they don't have strong glutes, they don't have strong hamstrings, they can't pull that weight off the floor. They're just using all their back. So the carryover is almost nothing for them to the deadlift. If think about it, if there was carryover and they're pulling 5, 6 plates off a rack and they're having trouble pulling 3, 4 off the floor, there would be carryover. But they're still struggling to pull it off the floor because it's not exposing their weak points. They're not bringing up the weak points, the glutes, the hamstrings. I mean, for people like that, they would honestly, their accessory movement would be the squat. You build up your legs, you build up those hips, you're going to be able to pull that weight off the floor. So your accessory movement is going to have to be specific to your weak points. Somebody like me and you are a little bit different, but we have a lot of similarities in that based on our structure. Like I said it earlier, my quads are very, very strong. My glutes and hamstrings, my lower back are always the more, I don't want to say weaker, but underdeveloped compared to the quads. My quads always overpowered them, which made sumo deadlifting a little bit easier. But if I want to bring up those weak points, then I have to get very specific. I have to hit the stiff legs more, the Romanian deadlifts a little more, and focus on more hamstrings and glutes. Adding in squats is not necessarily going to help me because it's going to overdevelop what my strong points are, and my weak points are still going to be neglected.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to talk about too, because I said, a lot of people do too many accessory movements. Mm-hmm. I see some powerlifters and bodybuilders, whatever, trying to get a better deadlift, and they'll do, the regular movement one day, then they'll do rack deadlifts to improve their, lockout, and then they'll do deficit deadlifts on another day to improve their pulling off the floor. It's like, well, why don't you just deadlift more? Sometimes it doesn't make sense when you do things like that. You're trying to improve out of the bottom, improve out of the top, just deadlift more.
Yeah, I mean,
that doesn't make any sense.
That was one of the techniques that was very big with the West Side Barbell.
Oh, God.
I'm pretty sure they would say deadlift once a month or something crazy like that. Or some of them wouldn't deadlift at all during training. They would only deadlift at a meet, and they would do good mornings, they would do rack deadlifts, and they would do whatever, but never actually practice the actual deadlift, which never made any sense to me. I even tried doing that for a very short period of time, and it didn't do anything.
Yeah, like I said earlier in this podcast, the deadlift is such a technical movement.
Yeah.
If you don't practice that technique, you're not going to get it. You can't just take a month off. I mean, remember, those guys at Westside are also way more advanced than you and me.
Right. I mean, I'm not going to...
In theory.
I'm not going to... Yeah. I mean, that's all subjective, too. But, especially a lot of them did a lot of geared lifting, too. So they're lifting in suits, stuff like that. So there's different carryovers to different exercises. But listen, for anybody who's trying to get better at any specific thing, you're going to want to do it as frequently as you can. The more frequently you can and still be productive with it, the better you're going to get. My deadlift really only started to move after years of pretty much being static when I started doing them frequently, 2-3 times a week.
Yeah. There's no reason to do all those other accessory movements if that's the case. But, man, I'm hyped for this episode. We gave away so much information this one. Sometimes we record them and I'm like, that was okay. This was a good one, man. I really think we covered a lot. I think this was a really, really... People are going to get a lot out of it, so I'm hyped for this one.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you do not go to the gym and practice your deadlift, you just wasted all this valuable information. So go to the gym, take a look at your deadlift. Put your phone down, record it from the side view.
The side view is the best view. Don't record it from the front, because then you're not going to see anything.
I could promise you that the way you think you're deadlifting is not actually how you're deadlifting. So many times, and I even said this to you, I would have someone film me, and I'd say, all right, I think I just dropped my hips a little bit. I'd look at the video. I dropped them so low. Yeah. So how you feel and how you see in the mirror from a certain angle might not be exactly how you're doing it. So get a good look at exactly what you're doing, because you might be dropping your hips. You might be, your hips might be shooting up too high. You might be starting too low. How you feel is not always going to be exactly what you see on the camera. Remember, the camera doesn't lie.
Yes, it doesn't. This is why this is the best podcast on iTunes, man. The best muscle building podcast on iTunes. I still don't understand why we're not in the top whatever featured thing on iTunes, and I can't figure out for the life of me how to get there. But I listen to a lot of podcasts.
I don't listen to any.
I know. Well, I do because I'm the host. I guess I have to. But no one gives out information like this. No one. I'm very proud of that fact that we give out quality information.
Well, that's always been, I guess you could say, the motto, because I hate 99% of the information giving crap that's out there, because it's not real practical information. And I can't tell you how much time in my earlier years training, when I first started, I wasted ingesting all this useless information.
Yep.
You know, and that's going to set you back even more. I'd rather sometimes have somebody just go to the gym and figure out themselves.
All right, guys. Well, that was today's podcast, the 7 things wrong with your deadlift. If I can summarize everything for you. So you're going to be deadlifting for your goal, whether that's overall health, powerlifting, or bodybuilding. Make sure you figure out that goal first. Then look at the overall form. Again, remember, keeping that barbell in a straight line over your shoulder blades. That's going to put everything else into perspective. Don't squat the deadlift. Keep in mind the different limb lengths that there are when you're deadlifting. Don't choose the wrong type of deadlift for your body. Programming, that's going to be based on your goal, like we said, and your accessory work. Keep that in mind when you're deadlifting. But again, guys, thank you for the support. Remember, leave us a 5-star review. I think even more important than leaving us a 5-star review, you have to share this podcast. Tell everybody about it. And we know there's a lot of you out there who do, and we appreciate every time you share, because the more people that we could spread this message to, the less crap that we're going to see on Instagram and the more quality we're going to start seeing. So, all right, guys, that was today's episode. It's your turn, Monster.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.